right, friends, it is that time once again, Wednesday night, live before lock, PGA DFS from Awesemo.com. I am Ben Rasa. That is Eric Lindquist. We are ready to go. The swing season continues, Eric. Shriners Children Open in Vegas. It is the start of a mini Vegas swing. So we get some pretty good golfers here who I think want to just take a 2-week vacation in Sin City. But how are you? Are you excited for this field that looks a lot better than what we've seen in recent weeks?
Can you blame them? Don't you want a 2-week vacation in Sin City?
2 weeks. 2 weeks is aggressive.
Yeah. No, I did like a Wednesday to Sunday shift and I almost died. So I totally get it. 2 weeks though. Have fun, boys. I'm sure they won't get into anything in particular, but looking forward to the next 2 weeks. And specifically this week, we have a cut event. We've got some top end talent. We've got some low ownership on some guys I really, really like. We've got a lot of concentrated ownership. I think this is a really fun week. And coming off of last week, where I don't know if you and I could have done a whole lot better in the pick department, minus the fact that the favorite won the golf tournament from the betting angle. It was lovely.
It was. Sam Burns was not on my radar. I never in a million years would have bet him short of 20-1. That was not going to happen. Trey Mullinax happened, though, for me in the betting market. Really important. Matthias Schwab getting cut on the number really hurt. Saw some good scores out there. Friend of the show, Mike Campbell, was already in chat. He had an amazing team with a cut on the number. A lot of people were right around it, and that's what we like to see. You know what? You get some reps with some of these swing season guys, and we're going to try to keep that going here. So let's get started. We got weather. We got withdrawals. Again, I think we can get this segment done pretty quickly. I don't see anything to really talk about.
No, they play in a snow globe. It's Las Vegas.
This tournament, the one thing I will say we've seen, and I think it's probably a combination of we've seen this event at TPC Summerlin forever. So you're going to get a couple outliers. There were a couple years, particularly the year that Patrick Cantlay won. I can't remember the exact one. It was absolutely brutal wind conditions. The winning score was much lower. But all in all, I think that's probably the exception to the rule. I don't expect that to be the case this week.
Yeah, and not even from a wind department. I mean, 10 miles per hour out there, that's pretty benign. You can get wind. I had talked about this a little bit yesterday on the show with Jason, but I've played a lot of golf in Vegas, and that's basically what you're fading is having like a crazy amount of wind, because for the most part, you play golf in a globe. It's going to be the same temperature this time of year, pretty much nonstop. No
doubt about it. I expect low scores, and that kind of leads us into our friends at Monkey Knife Fight who are sponsoring the show. If you guys haven't been over there, easy to play, player prop based contest, not a huge time commitment, and it's with every sport. We've got PGA, of course. They've got NFL. They're going to have NBA when it starts up. You can still play baseball for the playoffs, UFC cards, and more. Get over to monkeyknifefight.com, choose your game, your buy-in level, contest type, all the regular things that you're going to do. And they have an instant first match deposit bonus of up to $100 when you use that promo code Awesemo. So no better time to do that. And we talked about this last week, Eric. You can really get exposure to players in different ways. You know, the more or less segment over there, they've got Neiman over under 19.5 birdies this week. That's one if you think he goes low. And I kind of think that he does in some ways. You can lean over there. I know that's one of the type of segments that you like to play over on Monkey Knife Fight.
Yeah, and I loved everything Sam Burns related. I guess we were on opposite ends there. I don't remember that for whatever reason. I mean, he was by far my favorite guy. I would bet a guy at 14-1. But that's the other nice thing is that there are some favorites that you do kind of want to be looking at. If Brooks Koepka is a guy that's not on your radar, if you want to try to find some guys like Cameron Tringali, who I like shorting just about all the time, he's sitting up there with a more or less on 19.5 birdies or better, that same number as Neiman. I mean, you're looking at some opportunities to have some edges to be able to play. And when you have a promo code like this and you sign up using the promo code Awesemo, you have the opportunity to have free money in your pocket to build, sustain a bankroll. That's what it's about. And getting your feet wet in some of these props is the best way to kind of supplement your DFS income.
No doubt. And you get different opportunities. You give out the birdies. As our man behind the glass, Tyler, was just showing, you can bet on the fantasy points if you think a guy's just going to rack up some scores with more or less. So I love that. And then they have other types, that you can find within, but really would recommend checking that out. No better time to do it. Very soft competition. So shout out to Monkey Knife Fight, and we'll be talking. There you go. You got Brooks or Hovland with the points. I think that Hovland might edge him out, and I'm interested to get your thoughts there. Chat. Play Cam Young. Yeah, that seems like a pretty good idea these times. The kid is very, very good. We're going to talk about him and talk about a lot of people. We'll hit the like. Let's hit those like button as we get this going. build up. I know it's swing season. It's not all hands on deck, but we still want to have a good time here. You want to dive into it? You ready to go?
Yeah, I'm ready to rock.
All right, let's do it. We've got top of the board, Brooks. Some big names have chosen to tee it up. Sam Burns is second, and yes, it feels to me that he's overpriced, but at the same time, his results, he deserves to be there. Then you've got Hovland, Answer, Webb, and Will Z as the 10K plus options. I'm drawn to Hovland. I'm not going to lie. He was the first name that I kind of gravitated towards. But where do you see yourself looking north of 10K?
If nobody wants to play Sam Burns coming off of a ball striking clinic, and I do mean clinic, and you want to talk like these are bent grass greens, but it's Bermuda grass everywhere else out here. So I find it to be interesting. I mean, maybe if it's just kind of the same things that he's doing with his wedges, same kind of attack on the turf that he's had. Obviously, a ridiculous amount of comfort driving the golf ball. That's just been really what's trended up here in the last however long. I mean, he got a second at the St. Jude, losing 2.8 strokes off the tee out there. A little bit more water, so that can happen. But, I mean, a couple of these golf courses, I mean, he's just bombing it out here. And maybe with how wide open these fairways are, it's going to play pretty easy. And we're looking at some of that approach stuff. And can he go back to 8.3 strokes gain approach? Probably not. But he obviously likes the way that he's hitting the ball. He's crushing it. He's sub 10%. I mean, everything kind of checks for me to go right back to the well with him. If he can be remotely good with the putter here again, we're looking at a spot. I mean, he lost 2 strokes putting at the Sanderson Farm. So, I mean, if he can get flat or above, there's a crazy amount of upside. And I feel like it's pretty unexpressed in his ownership.
Definitely the leverage play. There's a bias in, I don't want to say in all of us, I'm certainly guilty of it. When a guy wins, it's like, okay, he won. Now it's someone else's turn. And certainly at the top of the board, that is not how it works. I do believe that very strongly in first-time winners, in historic winners of guys. They're on the verge of like losing their card, and it's something that maybe would never happen. Sam Burns is a player. This guy can do it. You just mentioned he just won a tournament where his putter was a net negative. He lost 2 strokes putting at Sanderson Farms. So say what you want. He's an LSU guy, and I do like to target him on Bermuda. He just showed that he can win without the putter cooperating.
And not only that, but when we talk about these first-time winners, a lot of what happens is they don't see a price bump and they see a lot more ownership flooding their direction. Well, you're seeing him get like a price bump comparably. Like, I mean, he's still just, 11,000. It's like the same exact number, but you're infusing a lot of fantastic players into this field as opposed to last week. And so 10-9, I'm still looking at as a pretty expensive tag, and nobody wants to play him coming off of the win. That's mainly the reason that I talk about a fade for some of those guys, is they just see more ownership than what it's worth it. And, first time winners, yeah, maybe they get a little too party happy after the fact and, maybe don't have the edge to go out and grind the next week. But Sam Burns is a young kid with tons of talent. And it's just, for me, if he were 15, 20%, we'd probably find it easy out there. But sub 10%, I would much rather click on his name than Koepka. And Hovland obviously has the ownership going his direction, so I'm still going to side with Burns there.
What do you think about a guy like Will Z? Bottom of this range. We know he can do it tee to green. He's just been automatic. Somehow, like, he'll have a card soon enough with this ridiculous situation. But the putter is gained in 3 of 4. We know he's good enough. I mean, are you just indifferent to him and you'd rather roll up to Burns, or do you have a specific issue with him maybe?
My specific issue is he played one really good round of golf, and I think we can get a little too invested in some of these things. I mean, obviously the putter flipped in a ridiculous way there, 61. There's no taking away from a really fantastic round like that, but it was pretty sloppy outside of that. I don't really know what to think about him at 10-1 here. I mean, if he doesn't shoot that one ridiculous round, I mean, he still faded to 14th place, I believe is where he finished at. And that's not going to get it done, especially in this range. And he played one of the largest outlier rounds of golf you could possibly play. Does he have a ton of talent? Yes. Is he going to go out there and stripe it? And, maybe you could group him with Webb Simpson, just kind of hope that they kind of both put it on. But Webb Simpson's a really good putter. I would much rather just go the $100 more to Webb Simpson there. Willsy, I don't trust the flat stick completely here yet. And because of how easy I think it is going to be able to drive a golf ball out here, Webb Simpson does everything else better than Will Z does from around the green perspective. So I like Webb just for the 100 more.
Yeah, that's a good thing. We didn't really talk about this, and that's my fault. When you look at this course, certainly the rough is pretty forgiving, in my opinion. It doesn't stand out in a ton of ways. It's a pretty standard lane, par 71. We've seen it a million times. You just mentioned it, though. I think really, for me, around the green is not overly important. You can really mask it with GIR. So I do want to target some pure ball strikers here. Will Z's not exactly my preferred target. I would put Hovland Answer ahead of him. Webb is the other mystery man. I don't know what to do with him. I rarely get him right. Just don't have a great feel with him. Do you have a good feel with him coming into this week?
I'm going to play Abraham Answer. So, I mean, I'm saying I would rather go the 100 to Webb Simpson, but I mean, he's still lower on the priority list. For this range, it's going to be Sam Burns, Abraham Answer. Those are going to be my two favorites to kind of pair together there. I'm probably only going to be taking most of my lineups as I'm starting to build more and more here. One of the guys from the 10K range, I thought there was going to be some Sam Burns, Will Z possibly, but it's just a little bit more difficult. And Will Z, I've just kind of become lower and lower on as time has gone on here. But Abraham Answer, I mean, he's just started to put up some of this form where he can go out and just win golf tournaments with his irons. We saw it at the WGC St. Jude. He played decent enough, made his way to the Tour Championship. And even that entire time, I mean, he's just not been very good around the greens with things. But I think you're talking about pure ball strikers. I mean, off the tee, he's going to be solid like he generally is. And then approach stuff, I mean, he can just spike it in such a ridiculous fashion. That entire run he had back in like May, June, when you're seeing 7.5, 5.2, 4.4, a lot of these massive ball striking weeks with the irons. And I think, just kind of up in this range, sure, he's getting some of the attention, but he kind of deserves it for what he's shown for his form the last 6 months.
Yeah, I mean, these are top end players in the field, and it's tough because it's a hard reset to coming. Some of them are coming off the Ryder Cup. We'll see how they do. I do think there's a lot of elements of trying to, I don't want to say peak for the CJ Cup, which is next week, but get some reps before that. But again, one of the questions I always ask you before we go to the 9K range, you mentioned you're going to be playing Answer, you're going to be playing Burns. Are you going to be playing them together?
I say, yeah, it's going to be tough for me probably in a lot of these builds. I mean, the 8K range is just loaded on the bottom end of the 8K where I want to play a lot of guys. Got a guy that there's probably in a million years you probably never expected that I'm going to be playing this week. That'll be good times to talk about. But the 9K range also pretty stacked. I really like Scotty Scheffler. I always like Louis Oosthuizen. So, that's going to be a lot of my lineups as well. Hard for me to really fit a bunch of two of them. But if I do, Sam Burns, Abraham Answer, I mean, they're going to basically be the workhorses of a majority of my lineups.
So you just mentioned a perfect segue into the nines. Louis Oosthuizen gained strokes putting in every event in 2021 except except the last two. So What are we doing here? I don't understand. I do understand that it was not going to last forever, but do you worry about Louis maybe regressing because we know he's going to, or do you still say, obviously he's had a great putting year. The ball striking was supreme all of 2021, sub 10K. He's a great starting point if you want to go balanced.
So there's this thing that exists when you're actually playing golf, and it's called putting stress on the rest of your golf game. His driver put stress on the rest of his golf game in the playoffs. It did not go very well for him. I can remember multiple times, obviously I was more invested in Louis than most people. And just him going around Eastlake, it was pretty pathetic, actually. I think he lost like close to 3 strokes. Why is this not coming up? 2.9 strokes gain off the tee there at the Tour Championship. It's just, that was kind of his bugaboo. And off the tee, he's never been super strong. You give me a neutral golf course where driving isn't really going to matter. It's not going to necessitate the winner. You become the iron player that he is. I mean, he's still just gained strokes gain approach in, I believe, 11 straight events, 10 straight events that we have strokes gain data for. And then the putter can obviously be world class. Impossible not for me to like him up there. We haven't seen him. People like to play the known quantity, the thing that we've seen recently. And that's why I think you're seeing sub 15% on him, because if you were to go out and play last time and be like, putting up a top 10 or something in that regard, I would expect him to carry more ownership than a guy like Answer, more ownership than a guy like Webb Simpson, more than a guy like Zalatoris. So Louis, I feel like you're just getting a nice discount and the ownership isn't there.
The ownership definitely dissipated a little bit. No doubt about that. And I don't know exactly if that's because of the putting woes late in the year. I mean, again, it's a couple situations. I'm not worried about that per se. I'll be honest, before we get to that super chat, because I don't know who Tilda Swinton is, so I'm not going to be any.
You don't know who Tilda Swinton is? I mean,
No.
isn't it the Korean director? Didn't he do this? The train with the ice. What is that movie? Snowpiercer.
I was going to say Storm Chaser. Okay, I don't know if that's the answer, but we appreciate the super chat. Nonetheless, even if it's capitals or movies, we'll take them. We appreciate you guys. I'm going to Decky. I really like him in this spot. Yeah. He's 9,500. This course, you can tear it apart with the wedges, with the short irons. He's good at all that. It just seems, and listen, it's Decky. I'm not saying this is a shoo-in. It seems like if he can give you anything with the putter, he's going to be there. When we saw him early, mid-September, Fortnite 6th, he gained 10 strokes tee to green, 4.5 on the approach. He lost 1.5 putting. Vintage Decky. He looked really crisp. I love that spot. But this range, besides Louis and besides Decky, and feel free to talk about Decky, you've got Scheffler, you've got English, Sunjay is here, Siwoo Kim. What say you? Kevin Na has withdrawn.
Yeah.
Where do you go outside of Louis, and where does Decky fall as well?
Yeah, so I'm looking at Scotty Scheffler. Do you get any kind of like a positive post-Ryder Cup boost kind of a thing? Is there anything you can kind of draw off of how well he played? And he putted about as good as I've ever seen Scotty Scheffler putt at the Ryder Cup.
I think it's very difficult to quantify. Obviously, I like that we've seen him play.
Generic question.
Yeah, I like that we've seen him play, and it's Scotty Scheffler. He's a damn good player. I think that's the biggest takeaway. If you're playing in the Ryder Cup, you're very good. So whether it's Scheffler or English or Hovland, these guys know what they're doing. And in a field like this, it isn't the weakest field that I've ever seen, but they're still, of course, towards the top.
Okay. Well, I think Scotty Scheffler matches up. I mean, ball striker, not a good putter, kind of the same thing as Decky in that regard. But Decky, we've just seen him go ridiculous low in some of these spots. And so I like what you're kind of pointing out there. And we just saw Decky, and he just played very well. 6th place, nothing to scoff at there. So I get it. And now you're also getting lower ownership than Scotty Scheffler. So maybe I'll kind of reconsider that, because Scotty Scheffler getting the most ownership out of anybody in the golf tournament is pretty surprising to me.
What do you make, last guy? I do want to ask you about Siwoo. You never know what you're going to get. He's got some, connections, TPCs. He's played this event. He top 10 in 2020. I feel like he's a little overpriced, but we know Siwoo can go out and win anytime if he's got it.
Shout out to your boy Siwoo. There we go. 9K.
Pat Mayo, of course, loves him.
Yeah, he's his boy. He has the FOMO pick, I know, from forever ago for Siwoo. I'm not going to play Siwoo in this spot. If he does it, he does it, whatever. But I think the quality of player for a little bit more, and then we're going to get down to this bottom 8K range just that I'm going to be drilling a hole in. I just can't play Siwoo at 9K. No,
I think that's where I'm at too. I don't hate the pick. I wouldn't push back. At the same time, give me Decky. Certainly rather play Sunjay. I'd certainly probably play Usti. And then when we look down, Casey, Connors, Kokrak, Reed, my goodness, I would make a case for all those guys. Before we get there, I do want to say, as always, we're providing some premium tools today. MLB Showdown ownership rankings are free. There is a show after this breaking down the cards, and the Dodgers PGA golfer rankings as well free. So just a little peek at some of the tools that we've got behind the glass here. Let's go to make the cut. We're going to start it in the 8s. I've been doing that for swing season because you know what? Full fields, you really don't know who's going to be where. But we got to talk about Paul Casey. We've got to talk about Kokrak, and we got to talk about Patrick Reed. Where do you go with these guys? And then I also want is Patrick Reed just going to go straight violence for being snubbed? Where do you think his head is at heading into a new season?
I don't know. He might break something though. That'd be entertaining. It could also go very poorly. People don't understand. Like sometimes when you're not okay from a golf perspective, it can flip on you a little bit too. You can try too hard, or you can try to force it. This is a golf course where you're just going to have to go stupid low and not even try to. Like it's going to be low. We saw the cut, 7 under last year. I mean, if we thought last week was bad with Schwab getting cut there on the number at -4, it could get much more, to use your word, violent this week at the Lindquist household when I start breaking things in the event that a number of my guys at -7 just end up tanking here. So I think Paul Casey, it's interesting. His ownership was a lot higher. He's now down underneath 20%. I mean, 16.8% for him. Now I'm going to have to reconsider because I was thinking he was going to be one of the more popular players in this field. I know he falls in the in the category of ya boy. And so, I mean, you tell me what you're doing with ya boy.
And who would that be? Paul Casey?
Paul Casey's your boy.
Yeah, he is. I do like him. He just had such a consistent year in 2021. I was really happy to see the irons just be rock solid, the putting be just disastrous. Certainly cash viable. I think it's a little thin to start with him. I just think you're giving up just a touch too much, but he makes a great second man in, no doubt about it. Balanced builds, aggressive builds, just a good player. I expect him to play pretty well and just be one of those safer guys. What about Kokrak though? Because Kokrak is someone he can utilize his length. The putter, honestly, it's not great, but when it is good, it's aggressive. He spikes putting, what I like. Around the green is really weak, but who cares? Honestly, mask it with your GIR. I think Kokrak could be a fine play here.
Well, and back to the good juju. He won the CJ Cup in Vegas at Shadow Creek in October last year. So, I mean, about the same time, same city. He missed the cut at the Shriners leading into that. I don't really give a shit. I'm going to play him. I think that he's kind of been somebody that's shown up a little bit more for me. It's been 24 hours since the last show, but I mean, I've been going through a bunch of different numbers for guys, and Jason Kokrak, it's pretty fascinating because he's just somebody that's probably better than I ever expected him to be. And I'm not just saying he has these random spike weeks. You're talking about the Charles Schwab, but he's just so bad around the green that it's insane. And it kind of is counterintuitive because he just doesn't miss a lot of greens. So sometimes what happens is like, a guy like this, he doesn't even necessarily gain strokes approach, doesn't even do anything else. But when the putter gets hot, it seems like he's one of those guys that just pours in 15, 20, 25 footers. And if you catch him on the right week, it's like an outright W type upside. So like, I like him in the betting markets. I think even a little bit more, but I like him mainly because he's under 10% in DFS as well. So I will be over the field on that for sure.
Yeah, I definitely see the downside. And Chad's pointing this out. It doesn't lie. His course history has been bad, but I still think it's there. I don't see anything why it wouldn't translate. You know, if he played this course 1,000 times or anything, you know, his game is not suited here. So I think it's a pretty sharp call in the betting markets, though. When you look at him, the betting market is wide open. You can find some 55 to 1s out there in the outright. Another guy who's in that exact same range in the betting market that I like a lot for DFS is Adam Scott. He's a couple $100 cheaper, really good with the short irons. Another guy like Usti who found the putter, that's not an Adam Scott trend long-term, but last year it certainly was. He gained in a ton of strokes putting over the course of the year. What's not to like? He was second at Wyndham. I expect him to start pretty strong here.
And his driver has been his Achilles heel for the last however long. Like he hasn't been as good off the tee. What a world is right. And so if you give me another guy who it's so weird to say, but like these would normally not be the spots where you'd want to fire him up. He went to UNLV, but whatever you want to read into that. I think that there is something where, you know, guys are just comfortable in certain golf courses. And I don't know the last time. I mean, did he play this last year? I don't feel like I remember him from this tournament last year. Doesn't look like it. Yeah, Adam Scott didn't play here. Cool. I was just making sure I didn't miss anything about that. But I feel like Adam Scott is a guy. This is probably the first time I can remember in a long time where I'm kind of excited to play Adam Scott. He's low ownership. Another one where we're just looking at some of my favorite plays also being some of the more low owned plays. And I get excited for weeks like that because it means, well, one, I got to play more volume. Two, I get to have the opportunity to just feel like I'm getting it in good no matter what the result is. Like there's certain pieces of chalk, you know, Scotty Scheffler is a good piece of chalk, but you know, 24% compared to the range. I don't think that makes any sense. Webb Simpson, 20%, man, just being light on those two alone and giving me rest of some of these ranges. And then down here at AK, I'm just going to play like no Cameron Tringali. So give me all the Adam Scott.
Yeah, I definitely think the best weeks are when you're leveraging with what you truly want to do, not because of ownership. Like if Adam Scott was popular, I would still be advocating playing him. He's not. So that's even better for me. No doubt about it. Let's finish the rest of the range though. Neiman, Wolf, Charlie Hoffman, who's another UNLV guy, and then EVR rounds out the eights. You got some big time scorers. You've got Wolf, who's a true wild man. I mean, how do you separate these guys at the bottom?
Man, ownership has changed so much since yesterday. I mean, it is wild because we saw Matthew Wolff having like no ownership, and now he's the highest owned of the grouping at 16.2%. I thought I was going to be playing him for the first time in forever, because I believe on our show yesterday, he was sub 8%, sub 7%. I'm not going to play a chalky Matt Wolff when I can play Eric Van Rooyen coming off of his absolute heater here at the end of the year. I think he makes a lot of sense at 8K. We've been waiting for him. It's weird that it happened in Tahoe and nobody got to kind of take advantage of that. But we're also now just seeing a guy that I think is going to start putting it together. He played really bad at the Tour Championship. I'm going to write that off. It's not something that I'm concerned about for him long term. I think having a secure place now on tour, secure, being able to go forward, I think he's going to have a pretty decent little year here as well. Has these massive spiked putter weeks and really kind of shows off in those spots. The Northern Trust, 6.8 strokes gained putting, 3 consecutive, actually, even in the Tour Championship, he gained putting. I think in a golf tournament like this, where off the tee again, he's pretty flat for the most part. Strokes gained approach can kind of be here and there, but he has big spiked weeks in that as well. I think at 10%, I would much rather go his direction than Matt Wolff, who I understand the course history, but now the ownership's just way too high.
I'm with you. No problem with that. Charlie Hoffman was really popular last week. He's making cuts right now. He's not doing anything. 22nd at Fortnite, 39th at Sanderson Farms. I don't think it's that bad, though. He's gained strokes with the approach in both of those events. He's making cuts if you look back towards last year. I think he's a fine play at far less interest here. But after Scott, I'm going to just go to Niemann. Niemann is going to be a macro buy for a long, long time for me. I think that there's not a ton, and maybe I'm wrong about this, and certainly recently Burns has looked great. To me, Niemann and Burns should be like, I don't want to pick on Sam Burns, but Niemann is a damn good player. I think we're going to see him really make the jump. I know that he hasn't gotten done. He's only got 1 win on tour so far. I think he adds at least 1 more in this coming season. So he's kind of a pseudo blind bet for me. I think I'm just going to bet him until he wins, because to me, Niemann is live. And if you're telling me he's 44-1 here, he's only got to win once this year at those type of odds. And I think you're going to see him at those type of odds in a lot of events. So put Niemann on the card this week.
My God, I can't find him anywhere better than 45-1. Where did you find Niemann at?
44.
Okay. Yeah. I was going to say, for me, you've got some guys. I mean, we already said Kokrak 55-1. I mean, that looks better. Adam Scott's 55-1. Maverick McNeely 60-1. I mean, those are all guys that I would much rather be clicking on, I think, from an outright perspective. There's some interesting numbers. The betting market is pretty advantageous, I think, this week. So we'll get to that a little bit later. We're obviously rounding out the DFS portion, but I do not agree with you that Joaquin Niemann and Sam Burns are 1-for-1 right now. Other than just being skinny dudes who wear Adidas, there isn't a whole lot that I find to be similar about them, other than, like Joaquin Niemann is really, really good off the tee, but Joaquin Niemann also, it just feels like he is so streaky and hard to get a gauge on it. And even when he does, I mean, the Rocket Mortgage second, he played really well at Sony. That was the main one that I missed the gate on. I would have had a big week with all the Kevin Na I had there if it weren't for that idiot deciding to play really well. He was pretty chalky too. I mean, Joaquin Niemann, he's going to be somebody that I think is going to be a good player. Just Sam Burns has already just showed me a lot more.
No, there's no argument with that. The resumes don't really line up right now. I guess I'm just wondering, and I don't want to, this is not I'm tying you. Don't quote you on this, but I'm just interested.
I just love Sam Burns.
You obviously have an eye for this. How good do you think Burns really is?
Very. And
okay.
This has been just a long-term thing. I talked about it yesterday, where the thing that I remember watching the most when Tiger came back, like, I don't know, like the 8th time, whatever, he played with Tiger straight up, like in his rookie season, and beat him straight up when he was straight out of LSU. And I kind of had an eye for him right off the bat, and then started to see how well he played on Bermuda. We've obviously talked about him at length on these shows in a number of scenarios. And Sam Burns is really, really good. And I think the ceiling is only there. I mean, now a multiple time winner here on tour. I'm just expecting him to continue to ride the wave. And just like everybody who's young here, you kind of have to find your footing. You can find it like Matt Wolff right out of the gate, and then it can fade away. And I think that's going to be kind of more of the commonplace for some of these kids, is they win, and then maybe the edge comes off a little bit. It's a little bit secure. You have more media stuff to do. It's not as easy to handle. I mean, Tiger Woods made it look very, very easy for many, many years, but Sam Burns is just somebody who has that low pulse, always kind of keeps it together, but walks and has that swagger at the same time. I feel like Joaquin Niemann only has it when he's playing well. And I feel like Sam Burns has it all the time.
I mean, right now, listen, if you think that Burns is that good, that makes total sense. I guess for me, there's a wiggle room where it's just like, okay, where is he at long term? Maybe he is that good. And so far he's answered that. There are a lot of guys. Aaron Wise comes to mind, and we'll get to him in a second. He wins, and I expected kind of a rocket ship, and it's kind of faded away. And some guys are like that, but it's a long-term thing. So we will see. Let's dive into that range, though. You've got Russell Henley. You've got Aaron Wise. You've got Mito. He's another guy. There's a chance Mito's just unbelievably good, or there's a chance that he's just playing good for a stretch here. Where do you go in the upper sevens?
I want to get your Aaron Wise. I mean, Sco Ducks, by the way, but Aaron Wise, I hate them, by the way. I think we both bet them Saturday, whatever. Aaron Wise, if this magic wand thing ends up starting to fall for him, we could be onto something, because he's always going to be a good ball striker. I feel like off the tee is kind of where he's been the strongest, and this isn't the spot where I'm going to be targeting that as much, but the strokes gained approach, there's still these spike weeks. He's really solid around the greens. It's just the putting. And if you were to get a flipped putter week, I mean, we've seen a number of them here where he's turned into top 20s and underneath 8K here. I mean, can we get some of that stuff like the OHL where he finished second last year in December? Like, we could find some of this upside and it could show up randomly, but I feel like he's kind of the candidate to burn me if you were to be overweight, where I feel like, you know, going to guys like Charlie Hoffman, I like a lot more. Mito Pereira, interesting, because I feel like he's going to come in with more ownership even than what we have. And I mean, what's it at right now? I mean, Mito is 15.9%. That's probably going to be a pass for me at that number.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a pass for me, unless you think that Mito is an elite player and you'll never get him sub 8 again. There's a chance that's true. For me, I tend to say that that's not exactly true. And if it is, so be it. I go to Wise. I know the stats aren't great, but he is starting to make some cuts. Again, swing season, I'm a big advocate of macro buys. I'm not going to ebb and flow with guys. I'm just going to play them for a batch of 2 to 3 weeks and see what happens, because I think that week to week, the skills can really flip quickly. Kevin Streelman is the other target for me right here. He's a really good short wedge player. I love this course setup for him. I don't see anything wrong with that. Sanderson Farms, he was fine. He gained 3 strokes off the tee, 2.2 on the approach, making cuts, hasn't missed one since July, going back to the Open. I mean, I think Kevin Streelman's a very safe play this week.
Yeah, and it breaks my heart, and I'm sure it breaks yours too, to see Maverick McNeely getting 14%, because I just want to play all the Maverick McNeely all the time. But coming off a second at the Fortinet, we're looking at Kevin Streelman kind of being the pivot, and I think it's probably rightfully so. I mean, I can't believe you threw him out there. I was kind of thinking about him a little bit and kind of on the fence. You just pushed me over on the other side of it one way or the other. So yeah, Streelman. I've been thinking about him a little bit here. I don't want to play Danny Willett, and nobody does apparently, coming off of his win, which is sad, but completely different, unrelated golf course. The guy that I have that I'm obsessed with this week is Taylor Gooch, and 7,600 right underneath him. I mean, that's probably going to be where I land the most in this range. I mean, okay. Theegala is just inflated now compared to everything else. And I mean, obviously I was heavily invested in him and got paid off nicely there last week. And I just think in this field, I'm willing to kind of pump the brakes if there's anybody that's going to kind of try to make that a back-to-back thing. But I just feel so much more confident that Taylor Gooch is a known quantity and somebody that's a lot better. I think in our official or unofficial world golf ranking, he's one of the guys that has the largest disparity. He's in the top 40, despite being like 73rd on the official world golf ranking. So take that for what it is.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of different types of players in here. Like, you've got guys that played once that looked pretty good. You've got Gooch. Leishman looked great to start the season. Maybe you keep that going. Then you've got Russell Henley. He hasn't played, so we don't know exactly where the game is at. If you want to blindly back him, I mean, we know he's an elite iron player. Guy can get crazy hot with the putter at times. I don't think it's the ideal setup for him, I'll be honest, but he's more a Bermuda guy, but that's all right. He's still a fine player. To me, Wise, Streelman, Leishman, I think, just because of that price tag. I like him a little bit.
All right. Yeah, I'm you're kind of splitting hairs. This range is great. I mean, the bottom the bottom 8K range, this mid 7K range, I feel like there's a lot of things that we can say, you know, Theegala, like, hey, look how good he played last week. And, you know, I was on him, but now I still expect more people to be there. If he's going to be sub 4%, yeah, I'm going to go there. But Taylor Gooch, I can make a reasoning for. Patton Kazire, oh, he just got done burning everybody. Let's fire Patton Kazire back up. Like, I'm okay doing stuff like this. And that's just why this is such a good tournament slate. Are you going to play Grillo at all?
He did make the cut. I didn't play him at Sanderson Farms just because the irons have been bad. This was the best he's looked in a while, and the result doesn't bear it out, but the stats do. So tee to green, he gained 3.1 off the tee and 3.4 with the approach. Then he lost over 2 strokes around the green and with the putter. That's okay, though. That's how he actually operates. The more concerning part for me was when he was losing on the approach. So I think you could go back there. It's not a priority. I'll be honest, though. I was looking through this. I was talking with Pat Mayo. I didn't know Ricky was in the tournament until I saw it at the time. 7,300. I mean, I know it's been a really rocky time, but I still think that price tag's pretty generous for a guy that we know he can do it. Do you want to blindly back him early, or do you want to see it happen first?
See, I blindly backed him, and I'm trying to remember where it was. I think it was the Open. I think it was like the Open Championship where he was somebody that I wanted to. I know he made a cut. It was something like that. There was one tournament where I was actually like, hey, we're gonna find this. It was coming off the PGA, the Memorial. I think people actually played him, and he was fine there as well. I'm pretty sure it was the Open, but just completely threw me under a bus there. 3M Open, I think, was one where I was also trying to make him a thing, and he just couldn't hit the ball worth a darn. He gained like 5.7 strokes putting and finished top 35. I mean, what a weird outlier that was. And the Wyndham, we just completely write off. I don't know. Like, it feels like coming off of a Ryder Cup as well. If we're going to talk about Patrick Reed, I'm not saying that nobody's going to argue that Ricky Fowler was a snub, but there's got to be something where he's out practicing. Say that again. I
might argue that, but yeah, no, rational people won't, but continue.
Okay. Yeah. Well, you sicko. There's that. Ricky Fowler is just somebody that I would think would want to go put on a good showing, probably seeing how awful how awful last season was. Happy to have it in the rear view. And then it's now looking forward and being like, all right, it's time to get it going.
Yeah. I mean, it's also, and I don't think that this is like a huge deal. It's the beginning of the year. Ricky, I'm sure he's not, he's doing quite well in life, but I don't know when his status. I assume that if he has an awful year, he will just lose status. There's nothing exempting him. He hasn't done anything in a long, long time. So
he is one step away from Smiley Kaufman territory.
That's what I'm saying. It's not great right now. His price is reasonable. I have no problem with Ricky. Then there's other guys. Luke List, he played very well. I do think he's going to be popular, and that's a little concerning, but classic Luke List, he gained 9 strokes tee to green, lost 2 with the putter. Just that is who he is. Chad just mentioned there's some names in the lower 7s. Feel free to open it up. Chez at 1%. I have a deep sleeper that I'm going to save for my hot take in this range. Anyone else that kind of caught your eye?
Oh, now I'm just intrigued. I mean, I'm going to play a bunch of Henrik Norlander again. I played a bunch last week. I needed him in my one lineup that it had Schwab. If I just flat out swap the two, I mean, they were different prices, but if you just flat out swap the two, it's 100K. It's absolutely murder train. Schwab -4 was just so destructive to my life and my well-being, but Henrik Norlander was just fantastic. And I'm not expecting him to play nearly as well, but at this bottom 7K range, you don't need him to do that. I like betting him as a top 10 again. He just kind of randomly starts putting some stuff together here. I'm going through some of his stats. It's not like overly impressive by any means. He's got a lot of red in a lot of categories for him, but last week just gaining like crazy with the approach. And he does that. I mean, he did it at Barbasol, finished 5th there, 7.6 strokes gain approach. 4 at the Schwab, didn't do anything with it because he was terrible off the tee. But going back to like January, the Farmers is what I always go back to, because that was really the first time I ever got paid off from this dude, coming off of a decent showing out in Palm Springs at the Amex. But the Farmers, 3.2 strokes gain approach, lost strokes putting, and finished 2nd. Sign me up for a guy who has that kind of ball striking capability with the irons and wedges.
I have no problem with that. Again, this is a pretty target rich environment. You don't need a lot of exposure to any of these guys. You can get over the field relatively easily. I've seen people mention Bramlett. You've got Charo there. Stallings was a mess for me last week. I don't mind it. I really don't. I think priorities would be Ricky, List, not really looking to jam though. If I land here, I land here. And then I have one other guy that I'm going to I'm going to deploy in just a couple minutes.
Wow.
But anything else there? I mean, you've got like Poulter, Ryan Moore, Cameron Young. Talk to me about Cameron Young. What do you do with a kid like this who's obviously got some talent?
I mean, he's good, but I feel like this is where we live in our little bubble, and it's always so hard to figure out what you're going to do with a guy like this, because I've heard his name a lot. I've heard people talk about him a lot. We haven't projected underneath 1%. There's a ton of talent here. I've been taking shots on some of these guys, and I continue to say in the swing season, the reason that it's been profitable in years past is because people don't know yet. And when people don't know, those are the opportunities to make money. It's not when it's a known quantity and you have to be on the right side or the wrong side of players that we know can spike on any random week that are gaining 20% ownership. But there's no opportunity cost sub 1%. I'm just worried that he won't be sub 1%.
I don't think he'll be that low, but at the same time, I still think that most people are going to look at this range. And yes, maybe they say, wow, this guy, very impressive last week. But let me tell you, I think this truly matters. Doesn't show on DraftKings. If you click his thing, you don't see a runner-up finish. So that is masked unless you're really, really digging. And I think that prevents a lot of people who are saying, I'm just going to box score hunt. I'm going to look to last week. Doesn't work like that right now. So that helps a little bit. He did really explode with the putter. To me, it's a pass. If he burns me again so bad, too many other guys in this range.
Okay. Well, I'm just saying, I love that point. That's something that I love about NBA when DK doesn't update for like a week or 2 weeks.
It matters
in the stats, and it matters big time because, unless you're paying attention, especially on weekends when things happen Friday, Saturday, Sunday, that first weekend of NBA, I always fire a lot harder because they don't have the box scores updated yet. And people maybe fall into the exact same place.
Yeah. And I think with everything going on, most casuals, if they're playing PGA, it's probably secondary to football and whatnot. And they are going to look at recent form, a lot of things much quicker than they normally would. So that is a little factor. I'm not saying just go to that specifically, but I did want to point that out. Let's go down. And before I do here, I do want to give a quick shout out to just Awesemo in general, awesemo.com/join. If you guys have not signed up, if you want to sign up, Nightbot is telling you can get 25% off your first week of Awesemo Plus Platinum right there. Click that link. PGA Live Before Lock is the code. There's no better time to do it. That's just to test it out. Maybe you like it, maybe you don't. We just want you guys to give it a shot. We've got so many tools, projections, and also, you probably heard me say this, and if not, if you are interested in the betting side of things and you say, you know what, I love DFS, but my state just got legal and I'm looking to maybe learn about betting or just hear about some wagers, Awesemo Odds YouTube channel. We are putting up betting specific content over there. It's been a blast. The channel is really growing. If you guys want to go over there, check out the videos. Very short, very quick. Me, Eric, Matt, the whole team having a great time. Hit that subscribe button over there. We'd really appreciate it, of course. But it's time for the salary savers. We're getting egregious. There's some names. Doug Gim is down here. Molinari, your boy, Fratelli, Jaeger. Who is clicking, who's rounding out the last man in some of your lineups?
Yeah, Jaegermeister is going to be a guy. The moves like Jaeger. We're going to be playing a little bit of him at 6,800. It's been really bad. There's no question about it. Bad was probably an understatement, what I just said. I mean, it's not been a good initiation to the PGA Tour for him here, but last week, 26 Sanderson Farms. Around the green, it really spiked for him there. And that's what I basically said is kind of his MO, is that he's just somebody who can get up and down out of a trash can. I don't know if that necessarily necessitates anything, but his driver is definitely the weak part of his golf game. These are the easiest fairways to hit, period. It's not going to matter nearly as much. As long as he doesn't hit it off the complete planet, he's going to have the opportunity to do what he does. And that's gain strokes putting and gain strokes around a green. So like, for me, if he can be semi-competent with his irons, having his driver neutralized is a huge thing at 6,800. He was also somebody that I was shocked when we did the show last week together, where his odds were at in the betting market, just kind of using that as the test for gauging him. I like betting him at 130-1 this week. I have 25-1 right now as well. That's one of my favorite bets for a top 5 from him. I understand. You want to talk about being early to a guy. He's not somebody I crazy believe in, but like he was going at like 45 and 50-1 last week at a couple books for an outright. And I understand, completely different field, but like you're now giving me 130-1 on a player that Vegas was assessing one way last week and they completely changed their viewpoint on him based on one tournament, screw that.
So this is, I did want to ask you because I wanted to dig in a little more. You said you've been playing this guy. It hasn't gone well, but you're going to continue to do it. So are you taking the philosophy, as I've been talking about, kind of like a macro buy on this guy and saying, you know what, I think that I'm going to get paid off the missed cuts and stuff. I'll get paid off with interest 1 or 2 times and that'll make up for it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we saw his last 3 tournaments of the Craft Fairy Tour, things you can actually see on DraftKings if you click on that. 2nd, 4th, 4th, right out of the gate there. 2nd at the Rex Hospital. We see more than ever Corn Ferry Tour guys showing up on the PGA Tour and be able to make an impact, a la Scotty Scheffler, a la just like everybody. But some of these guys who get their top 25 cards, I mean, this guy was playing elite golf on a golf course where you needed to just go low. So, I mean, on the Corn Ferry Tour, you don't have many, -4s are winning golf tournaments or -10s are winning golf tournaments. You don't really see that on the PGA Tour anymore either, but you have to go crazy low in some of these Corn Ferry events. So if you give me a golf course that's going to be set up more like those, I really do like him at 6,800.
No problem with that. What about some names, a little lower? You got like Scott Piercy, Sneds is down there. Mullinax, if you want to go aggressive off the tee, he was really good last week. I like the spot a lot more last week than this week. Anything in the mid 6s for you?
Yeah, there's a couple guys. And I mean, Trey Mullinax, we're just going to fire up from now until forever. If you want to talk macro buy, nobody is going to be surprised that we're going to be playing him again this week. I'm assuming you're in on Trey Mullinax again.
I think it's a worse course, but he's just such a pure scorer. And I think he's just a straight better player than most of this range.
Yeah, me too. So I'm right there. And I'm going back to the well on Aaron Rai as well. Another guy who I just feel is a better player than what he exemplified here, coming off of the Sanderson Farms, just miscut, just nothing putting, nothing, anything. Not good at all. I expect him to start getting his footing here in America a little bit. So I'm going to also kind of continue my macro buy on him regardless of results.
Yeah, I think this is a situation with these guys. Don't give up too much. If you have a line on one of these guys, I'm not saying blindly back it, but particularly someone coming over from Europe, someone coming up from the Corn Ferry, it may take a little time, and I'm willing to stick. Mullinax has got the combo that I always like off the tee and putting. Aaron Rai, he's shown he can hang. What about, I got to bring up this guy, Tom Hoagie. I think this could be interesting. He's a guy who can destroy easy courses, particularly with the short irons. It's not great. He missed the cut at Sanderson Farms, but he lost 5 strokes putting and he gained 4 strokes on the approach. I think that him and Russell Knox, if you are looking for true 1%ers, you could do a lot worse.
I mean, it was Martin Laird that won this tournament, right? Am I confusing them? I always get them confused.
Yeah, Laird won this tournament.
Yeah, so it's like Martin Laird. I always confuse those two in my brain. Obviously, pure ball striker. I can remember him spiking random weeks here and there. Russell Knox, not somebody that I expected you to be throwing out there, but this is just kind of an easier golf course, and I don't mind necessarily that call. Tom Hogue, I think it's Hogue. Maybe it's
I call him Hoagie until he does something.
Like
he's Hoagie. It's fine.
Okay, that's fair. Yeah, he deserves that. He's not all that good all the time, but Northern Trust, he showed up at that golf tournament for sure. I don't see it, but I trust what you're I think you're looking at. I get what you're saying. For me, the putter's just extremely bad. And I don't know. We saw only one time that I'm looking at here. Any top 10, other OHL, you can't see what that looks like. But I mean, the putter was just out of this world bad. He had 1 spiked week, and now we're going to buy in for a 4th at Northern Trust. I don't know, but I mean, you could do worse, I suppose, underneath 6,500.
I mean, I'm more going with the sense that his strength is the iron game. He needs to make a cut, not come in 4th per se.
Mm-hmm.
But I think this is well stated. He's a good showdown type play because he always has some good scoring stretches. It's 72 holes that gets him. It's not that he can't do it. It's just he has a stretch where it really takes him out of these tournaments. So I think you don't want to go, for me, maybe I'm wrong, but I don't want to go much lower than that. Kyle Stanley's 61, but he just can't do anything. It's insane. His tee to green is great, but every week he loses strokes. You see anyone at the Flatman? To me, that's a no.
Oh, I mean, 6K. We were trying to make cases for certain dudes yesterday. It didn't go very well. Camilo Villegas was as far as we got, and then that just kind of made us realize that we were wasting time down here. I'm not sure. JT Poston was somebody that we both played last week in very nominal amounts, and normally I throw him out there more than I should. He's at 6,400 up there, but there's really nothing underneath here. If you guys can find a dart throw, if you like the lineup, I feel like anybody that would end up working out from underneath 6,500, it's not because of the guy underneath 6,500. It's because the top 5 that you were able to fit into the lineup, they got you access to them together.
I agree with that. I just think in a tournament like this, it's better than we've seen, but it's still not enough. You're not getting Rahm, Rory, Hovland combos. You're getting okay players up top. I don't
Sam Burns.
Yeah,
Abraham
like to me,
Ancer.
it's a little thin. Hubbard, okay. I think if you're in a jam, maybe, but again, to me, it's not a problem with him. It's more a problem of, I don't feel the need. I'm very comfortable in the KC Decky range. I don't need to get Webb over those guys. And that's what you're upgrading. Oh,
somebody
my God.
said William McGirt, and I almost threw up a little bit. I mean, coming off of one good week where 4.5 strokes staying around around the green, you love that guy. Well, then you got to definitely fire him up coming off of one top 20.
Never, ever, ever. Let's see. Where is McGirt in the outrights? We got 400 to 1. Yeah, that sounds
put a dollar
right.
out as insurance. Just like, I don't know.
Life
Don't
hedging.
order your 1/100th of Kobe beef tonight. How about that?
Isn't that the truth? All right. Hot take time. Here we go. See, look at these people dropping knowledge with Hollywood Hoagie. That's what I'm talking about. I think he's making a case to play him, which is good because I already said to do that. Hopefully that's the case. Hopefully he plays all right. Let's get the hot takes. Chat, you know the drill. Pump up the likes. We're going to get a little egregious here. Do you have a bet or a hot take that you think is worth throwing out there to the people?
Yeah, I mean, I gave you Steven Jagger already. I'm going to throw out somebody, and I'm just kind of throwing it out there. I try not to bring these guys up over the course of it, but he was terrible towards the tail end of last year. And it's one player I'm playing that is at 6,900 there. Garrick Higo is going to top 10, 13 to 1. Garrick Higo, the lefty swinger from South Africa, terrible, egregious end to his season. But I'm going to, I don't know if it's macro buy. I mean, the guy went out and won a PGA Tour event, but Garrick Higo, I think, could actually make a run at a golf course like this. Played the Palmetto well, just didn't really have it towards the tail end of last year at absolutely no ownership and completely off the board here, 13 to 1. He'll be somebody that I fire up in the betting markets.
Okay, I can get down with that. So I told you earlier in the show, there's one guy that I didn't mention, and I don't want to make it like, oh, this is like the...
I love when you do it. I did it first. I mean, I like to not bring up my guy during the show.
So if you are looking for a play, let's get this right. He is at 7,100.
Oh, can I guess it?
Please.
All right.
All right. So you got here. I'll do it like this. You've got 5 guys there. You've got Troy Merritt, Joel Dahman, Stuart Sink, Rasmus, and Martin Laird, the defending champ.
I mean, it's got to be Rasmus.
So you're down to 4 guesses because that's wrong.
No, I was kidding. I was just joking a little bit. I mean, it's got to be Joel Dahman. You're going to the bucket hat guy.
And now you've gotten to the final 3 guys.
Oh, shit. Where are we at here? What is going on? This is so fun. What if I don't actually get it? Stuart Sink.
And now there are 2 players remaining.
Oh my God, am I not going to get this?
You've got the defending champ or Troy Merritt.
Well, I mean, the defending champion is too obvious. So Troy Merritt.
Troy Merritt played last week
Christ.
in Europe at Alfred Dunhill. I don't love the flyback. This guy's playing pretty good golf, though. He was 27th there. He played earlier in the year here at the Fortnite, 16th, gain strokes putting. He's a phenomenal putter. He was positive off the tee and with the approach. I think this is a pretty good course for him. He's 150 to 1 in the outright market, which is ridiculous, but whatever. That doesn't matter. He's not going to win the tournament. Top 10 market, 11 to 1, 11 to 1, 13 to 1, 23 to 1 at one of the major books out there.
Whoa.
So that is something that I think we want to take advantage of. To me, Troy Merritt is worth a sprinkle. He's playing good. He's making cuts. He can clearly handle this course. And when you can putt like that, this is a guy that gets in the mix. He was runner-up at Rocket Mortgage late in the year, July. I like him. I like the spot. He's going to be a 1%er. He's also on the betting card.
I had to put Mike Campbell in timeout. Don't do that. Got it 25 minutes before me. I don't care if chat got it 25 minutes before me. You think I care?
Chat knows my.
We were playing
Squid
Squid Game, okay? That's what was going on. It was an absolute Squid Game, and Troy Merritt, the winner, takes home the money.
Troy Merritt, baby. I love it. See, my people, they knew, and Squid Game's taking over the world. Never heard of it in my life. Now every show, it gets brought up. But we've done some good work here. You've got hot takes. I've got hot takes. Again, I want to give a quick shout out to our friends at Monkey Knife Fight. Get over there. Use that instant match deposit bonus. Start playing. Start winning. If you have any questions, you got Eric Lindquist's handle on the screen. Mine as well. Jazzraz DFS at Eric Lindquist. Good luck, my friends. Enjoy the golf. If you have any questions, hit us up. We will be back next week to talk the CJ Cup. Same time, same place.